Welcome on in, Dragon Folk. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I know I am. My name is Alex, and you are here with me in the lair. We're taking a little bit of a seat today because we actually got some new information about Prism, Advent of Thrones, the new young Prism to come out in Dusk Till Dawn, and also the young version of Vincent. So let's go ahead and talk about what they have going on for themselves as far as their hero powers go, and how we can best utilize them in the commoner format. Now, first, let's talk about what these heroes do and how they are best utilized in these formats here. First, we're going to go ahead and talk about Prism. Now, Prism, Advent of Thrones, is the new light illusionist to come out in these young formats. And with that being the case, obviously, commoner being probably the main focus I'm going to have here for this channel, we did want to talk about what she can do in commoner, and more specifically what her hero power is and how to best utilize it. So Prism Advent of Thrones is a light illusionist hero. She's got 4 intellect and 16 health, so already 4 health less than most of the heroes in this format. But on top of it, her new abilities are very, very interesting, and they actually are very shrouded in mystery because we are not aware of what any of these things are yet. We can only speculate on what they are. Her ability is that anytime that a card with Herald in its name is put into Prism's soul, you can then go ahead and search your deck for a Figment card, put it into the arena, and then shuffle your deck back up, right? And that's a very interesting thing because we don't know what a Figment is, right? We're not sure what it is, and I think we're kind of trying to figure out what that is based off of the second ability here, which is much like old Prism's ability, right? Which allows you to pay 2 resources once per turn at instant speed to then banish a card from Prism's soul. But this time, instead of gaining a spectral shield like the original one would, this time you are actually going to be able to awaken a Figment on the battlefield that you control. So awakening Figments is the new Prism's kind of thing as far as this goes. And while I'm not too sure how well that's going to work out in the commoner format, to be honest, I'm not sure whether or not they're going to have common allies for heroes to check out. I mean, like, you look at Dromai in commoner, and Dromai only has access to Ashwings. She doesn't have access to any of her rare dragons. Although if you move it into the Clash format, it does look a little different, so I'm expecting this Prism to look a little different in the Clash format as opposed to commoner, but right now, it is all about trying to figure out what Awaken does and what the Figments are. Because first and foremost, you have to have Figments in your deck. There's no way around it. They are cards you're going to have to put in your deck. So I am wondering whether or not these work a lot like Invoke cards, but they're stagnant on the board first, and then you awaken them. So we don't see this really with Invoke Soraya, because Invoke Soraya, you need to have a Spectral Shield. This is all specifically for the other formats, because Invoke Soraya is a legendary. But we do also have Bellona, which is a Archangel that was spoiled for Dusk Till Dawn. And we're not sure whether or not that's just the back side of her card, or if it's the front side of her card and it's only one side. Because what a lot of people are speculating is that these Figments are the front sides of these angels, right? These angel allies. And essentially what you'll do is you'll find them, you'll put them onto the battlefield, and then you'll go ahead and be able to awaken them at instant speed to possibly prevent something with Ward 4, or to even utilize it such as a, awakening it and getting rid of its, what would essentially be, in, if you were to consider it in like Magic terms, summoning sickness, by making it at the end of your turn into a angel ally, and then being able to attack with it on that same turn, possibly even drawing a card based on cards that get you, things from your soul, yada yada, so on and so forth, right? So I think it's an interesting thing, but I wanted to mainly look at the Herald cards that we are going to see in commoner and what this is going to possibly mean for the format. Now, we've already seen all of these Herald cards in commoner right now. We're already aware of all these cards, and in most cases, the old Prism plays with a lot of Pummel, right? Pummel is the old Prism's way to go about doing it, because you don't get a lot of the cool aura effects. You're not playing with auras and such in Prism in that format simply because, well, they're expensive at blues to play with something like Iris of Reality. But on top of it all, there are not a lot of auras that are in common. Matter of fact, I don't think there are nearly any auras that you can find in common besides Spectral Shields. And you're not exactly making Spectral Shields at a huge rate enough to be able to consistently ping with them. And also having to spend 3 resources as opposed to spending just nothing, because Luminaris is really the busted card here. The heralds that we have are obviously the Herald of Protection, Herald of Ravages, Herald of Tenacity, Wartune Herald, and Herald of Rebirth. So those 5 heralds are going to be the ones that you're probably going to see a lot of, simply because those heralds are going to be the core, right? Not only do they have really, really powerful damage stacked onto them as well, and you're playing in a young format with no sideboard in Commoner, where most players are not playing things such as poppers, right? There's not a lot of poppers that are being played, except for if you're playing like Brute, right? Or Guardian, sometimes you're doing that too, but in most cases, you're not seeing just like poppers added in everywhere. Most decks will have anywhere between like 3 to 5 poppers at most. So if you fill your deck with a whole bunch of really, really powerful heralds, you're going to get some of that damage through at some point. You're going to be making Spectral Shield tokens with Herald of Protection. You're going to be able to get an additional card from your graveyard to the top of your deck with Rebirth cards, so on and so forth. So it's all about kind of figuring out what the best possibility is. But we don't know too much about Prism, right? Prism, not really a huge amount of detail put into that, because now we have 2 new keywords that we need to learn as the days go on, as we march towards Dusk Till Dawn. So we'll go ahead and head off of Prism, because Vincent is a little bit more explainable in the way that we're trying to look at cards that would work well with her deck in Commoner. So moving on to Vincent. Vincent is the new Shadow Runeblade hero that is coming out in Dusk Till Dawn. She has 4 intellect and 20 health, and she's got a very interesting ability that I think is beneficial, but also not super beneficial, depending on the format. I would say Vincent does not seem super good based on this ability into Classic Constructed, but into Blitz and young formats, I think she has a lot of potential, simply because of the fact, and we'll go over what Vincent's abilities are, right? Vincent's abilities are as follows. You banish a card from your hand at the beginning of your turn. Right, beginning of your turn, you banish a card from your hand. And if you do banish a card from your hand, you get a rune chant, right? Now, the problem with this specific line of text, it says that banish a card from your hand at the start of your turn, right? That is not a you may banish a card from your hand. This is a must. You have to banish a card from your hand. And if you do, create a rune chant token. Now, most people will look at that if you do portion and go, oh, well, that means that I don't have to, right? But that's only if you have no cards in your hand, right? If you have no cards in your hand at the beginning of your turn, you can't banish anything, which means that if you can't banish anything, you don't get to make the rune chant token. Now, rune gating is a thing that has been introduced via the promos like Phantom Banshee, which I'm not sure whether or not it's a rare or a common yet, so I'm not sure whether or not we're going to be seeing it in Commoner itself, but Phantom Banshee is getting us an idea of what rune gating is, which essentially means that if it's in banished, you can go ahead and play that card for free if you have the amount of rune chants on the board equal to the cost, equal to or greater to the cost of the card in banished. As long as it has that rune gate text on it, that is what you're going to be looking for. So otherwise, if it's a card like any other Shadow Runeblade card that says you may play this card from banished, you can go ahead and do that without needing any certain rune chants. But with rune gating, it's essentially going to give you these very, very powerful cards out from the banished zone, but you have to ramp up your own rune chants first in order for you to be able to do that. Now, this leads me to believe that there's going to be a very go tall strategy for Vincent. A lot of, gain a whole bunch of rune chants and then come in with one big attack plus 6 rune chants behind it. And that's a decent amount of damage coming in. So Obviously, there are heroes that can block that out very well, but if you take something like Phantom Banshee's damage plus 6 rune chants, I mean, that's a lot coming in all at once, especially in most cases when a hero's health is only at 20, and some heroes even have less health than that, according to, Prism and Kano and so on and so forth. So you do see that there is a possibility for change there in how threatening an attack like that can be from Vincent. Now, the other part of Vincent's hero ability is a very interesting one, and I'm not sure how much it's going to be used in the younger formats, or really even how much it's going to be used in the older formats, such as, the adult formats like Classic Constructed. But I think a lot of what we're seeing here is life loss is a benefit for Vincent. She'll use life as a resource in order for her to gain some kind of benefit, such as her Flail, right? If you look at Flail of Agony, which I'm assuming is the token card coming out of Dusk Till Dawn, obviously being like a common or even a rare, it means that we're going to be able to use it in Commoner itself. So works out fine. But it utilizes a life resource to play it, as opposed to a regular resource that you would generate by pitching a card. So doing that is pretty important, and you see that even here in her last part of her text, which says that when you play a Shadow non-attack action card, you can pay 1 life, right? And then if you do pay that 1 life, the next rune chant effect, or the rune chant, activation essentially, the damage from that cannot be prevented. So what that does is it essentially will bypass anything as far as 1 rune chant, which is where I'm kind of iffy about it, right? Now, obviously, you can figure out some way to make, I'm sure there's a way that it stacks, or there's a way to make it so a lot of them come through and they're not able to be prevented entirely. At least like somewhere between like 4 to 5 rune chants maybe not being prevented, but the odds of that being done in common are probably pretty low. That seems to be some spicy stuff for Blitz, or maybe even Classic Constructed. But I would say that a lot of what you're seeing there is just being able to get 1 damage off at least. And in most cases, if you're dealing a arcane damage, there are cards that do benefit from that very, very much. Let's say you go ahead and play Bloodspill Invocation in common, right? Bloodspill Invocation being an aura that gets go again, and you essentially are able to make an aura that when the next attack action hits, that you will go ahead and get some extra rune chants on top of that there to be made. And then obviously it's got the downside if you're being hit and you get damage taken to yourself. More specifically, if you've been dealt damage by a hero, loss of life, I imagine, is not dealing damage, so it is very different. But if you end up playing a Bloodspill Invocation, for one, right, then you go ahead and play a Meet and Greet, right? So you've probably got a rune chant on board, right? Because you have to banish a card. So you've got a rune chant on board. You've got a blue, right? You can go ahead, you got a blue, a Meet and Greet red, and a Bloodspill Invocation red. So what you can do is you can play the Bloodspill Invocation red. You can go ahead and then play whatever banished card you want to play from there too, because obviously you don't want Blood Debt. But you can even go ahead and play Bloodspill Invocation for 1, right? And then let's say you go ahead and play Meet and Greet, right, for 2. So you've banished the blue, or you've pitched the blue card in your hand. You're now playing Meet and Greet, right? You got a rune chant for banishing a card from Vincent. Let's say it's Bounding Demagon, right? You go ahead and banish that from, or you keep that in the banish zone, right? You then can play Bloodspill Invocation, and then you can play Meet and Greet. And when you play Meet and Greet, well, I guess it's really when you play Bloodspill Invocation. Sorry, I'm doing this off the top of my head. You're going to play Bloodspill Invocation, and then you can pay a life. And when you pay that life, the next rune chant that you have, which you're going to have at least 1 rune chant at that very moment, I would imagine, that 1 rune chant is not going to be able to be prevented. That means they cannot play Arcane Barrier, they can't play Oasis Respite, they can't do anything to prevent this 1 arcane damage coming through, which means that then you can come in with Meet and Greet. Meet and Greet has, when this card hits, create a rune chant, right? But it also has that if you deal or have dealt arcane damage this turn, the card will gain Go Again. So since you are attacking with Meet and Greet, you will then go ahead and get the trigger to get the rune chant damage to go off on your opponent. Your opponent will have to take that 1 rune chant damage. Now you are faced with the fact that Meet and Greet does in fact have Go Again. It will get the Go Again because the rune chant damage gets off first. The arcane damage happens first before the Meet and Greet can see whether or not that it's been dealt damage, right? So you get that arcane, which means Meet and Greet now has Go Again. It's going to come in for like 4 or something, I think. I think 4 is the red. And then if they let it hit, you get another rune chant, which means that your Bounding Demagon that you can now play from Banished for 0. You can play Bounding Demagon from Banished because you did play a non-attack action. And now you get an additional +1 to Bounding Demagon. You get the +1 from the rune chant, and you get to get a second attack in on your turn. So the opportunities are there for that to work out in your favor. But of course, I would imagine there's a lot of risk. I'm not sure what kind of common Shadow Runeblade cards or Shadow cards we're going to see in Dusk Till Dawn. I'm assuming we're going to see quite a few, but I'm not entirely too sure what we may end up being there with. But all I know is what it's going to care about is that if there are common Rune Gate cards, you're going to want to care about Rune Chants. If there are a bunch of cards that care about life totals, you're going to want to see about getting something that might be able to even heal you. I believe Healing Balm is in Uprising. That is a generic card that you can play. It's an action with no Go Again that you can use to gain 3 life at red, gain 2 at yellow, or 1 at blue. It does not work in instant speed like Sigil of Solace. Sigil of Solace is a rare. So, again, Clash, you may be seeing a different kind of loadout for Vincent, but I do imagine there are going to be some kind of life gain, life loss benefit for Vincent in Commoner. On top of the fact that Vincent's probably going to have a lot of cards that are going to make a lot of rune chants, be able to get a lot of those cards that you can have with Rune Gate from your banish zone out into the field and get them for practically nothing, right? You're going to be able to pay nothing for them, get those big cards out. Those Rune Gate cards may even have Go Again, which will then allow you to deal a bunch of arcane damage from your rune chants, plus the physical damage from the Rune Gate card. And you could, I'm assuming some of the cards will probably even be 1 or less. So you can even play something like Snapdragon Scalers to give it Go Again through that to then even continue that very, very large combo. I imagine there's going to be a lot of Go Tall stuff with Vincent. I'm not sure how much Go Tall stuff is going to happen with Prism. But again, we're just here to speculate right now for the Commoner format while we wait to find out more about Dusk Till Dawn. So let me know what you guys think about the cards that we can find here in this new, kind of meta. Are these 2 heroes going to shake up the Commoner format, or are we still going to see Ira and Icelander and Kasai and all of them still at the top tables for the Commoner format? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm also not sure how many of you guys know about the Commoner format, so I can always go ahead and make a video teaching you guys about that, but I won't go over it here. Just feel free to check out the Commoner format rules over at fabtcg.com, and I'll go ahead and continue to provide you with some awesome content in regards to this very, very, very budget-friendly format for all of us to play and enjoy. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate your support. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like these budget plays and budget formats too for all TCGs, and I hope to see you all very soon. Nerd out.